Welcome back to Control the Freak. Today we're going to talk about the Love Island control freak problem. Don't worry, this isn't dumbing down and this isn't for clicks. If you've watched any of the previous videos and you've learned about the control equation, this is going to make some sense to you. So stick with me. Doesn't matter if you like Love Island or not, this should make sense. So it was after season 3, when season 3 had really hit and it was popular and it was everywhere, that my missus said to me, we should watch season 4. Now, I know I'm a man of a certain age and it would be a surprise to a lot of people that I would watch Love Island, but I've got a much younger missus, as I've said before. She wanted to watch it, so I thought, all right, what the hell, we'll give it a go. Season 4 rolls around, we watched the first episode. And it was all right, it didn't say much about it, we went to bed. The next morning, she said to me, what did you think to Love Island? And almost before I could reply, she said, I'm obsessed. And I thought, right, okay, well, watching Love Island, then I haven't really got any choice in the matter. But by the end of the first week, I was probably enjoying it just as much as she was. Really entertaining show. It never starts off that way. It's quite kind of stale and boring, but as it goes on, it gets very entertaining. But it's the reason for the entertainment that kind of troubles me. If you're interested in controlling behaviour, analysing it and coming up with solutions the way that I am, Love Island is a goldmine. For those that don't know, that don't watch it, the way Love Island is set up is this. You've got a villa. It's not an island, but it's a villa on its own, kind of in a valley. You get some overhead shots that show you this villa is separated from everything. There's nothing else around, apart from a place called Casa Amor, which isn't really relevant to this discussion, but it's where they split up halfway through the season and some of the Love Islanders go to have their loyalties tested. But as I say, it's not really relevant to this situation or to this discussion. So this villa is wired for sound everywhere. There's microphones everywhere and there's cameras everywhere. There isn't a corner of that villa where you're not on camera. And the early seasons, before it got popular, this led to some pretty embarrassing situations where people thought they weren't being filmed and they definitely were. It didn't help that they were allowed to drink every night as well. So you can imagine the debauchery caught on camera. And there's a Miss GB from, I think, season 1 or 2 that learnt that to her cost. But anyway, so the islanders come in and they all have to wear microphones. The girls go in first, usually 5 or 6 girls. And then shortly afterwards, 5 or 6 boys arrive. And to start with, it's the girls that pick the boys based on who they're most attracted to. But it doesn't stay like that. Boys will be boys, because the thing that they're told when they come in the villa is they're supposed to be open and they're supposed to explore connections. There's no encouragement to try and build a relationship with the person that picks you. You're supposed to explore connections. Therein lies one of the problems, because it doesn't take into account what boys are like. You've just told a load of good-looking boys walking into a villa with a load of really good-looking girls in bikinis. You're supposed to explore connections and be open. So what do boys do? They don't commit to these girls. They play around. They explore. To try and combat that, there was some rules that started to come into place amongst the girls, and I think these came in from outside. And I'll come to how I think this is relevant very shortly. They have things like bro code, girl code, whether or not you're a girl's girl, whether or not you've got your boys back. And everything you do is scrutinised under these codes. If you know that your friend has done something and you tell a girl, you haven't got your boys back, that's not good bro code. If you know that your girlfriend's boyfriend has done something and you don't tell her, that's not good girl code and you're a bad friend. And if a girl falls out with a boy in front of you and you don't stick up for her no matter what, that's also bad girl code. You're not a girl's girl. And so you can lose popularity very quickly there. It's quite incestuous and it's very controlling. They all apply it to each other. They're all under these codes all of the time. And I think this evolved to try and kind of protect themselves against the worst behaviour of the boys in a lot of ways, but also for a lot of the boys to protect themselves against betrayal from the other boys, because all these boys are trying to get each other's girls. But I don't think it originated in Love Island. I think it came from elsewhere. And I think it came largely from social media as well as young people in general. So the thing about Love Island is it pulls from social media. It always has. It's always pulled its contestants from social media. And this was brilliant in the first few seasons because you could go into Love Island with a few thousand followers, and if you were popular, you could come out with a couple of million. And this would lead to record deals, book deals, fly-on-the-wall documentaries, TV presenting gigs. You could be a plumber or a cashier one week, and the next week, or a few weeks later, your life was changed, and now you were a media personality with brand deals on social media, earning an awful lot of money. But with that kind of level of followers, a couple of million followers, you are now under an awful lot of scrutiny as well. Nothing scrutinises quite as well as social media, or at least not quite as much as social media. And most of the people that are following you because of what they've seen in Love Island. And those people have invested. People tend to do this on social media. They connect very closely with the person they're following. And the most popular people, generally speaking, will have stuck to those codes. The bro code, the girl code, being a girl's girl. They're the most popular ones. So you've got lots of these girls that are being hurt, and you've got lots of followers watching them being hurt, and they're rooting for them. And a narrative starts to rise to the surface about what being a girl's girl or having your girl's back really means. Now, I think this all kind of changed around season 5 or 6. As I say, they pull from social media. And it's inevitable that as the show goes on, they're going to start pulling from social media who have either agreed with this narrative or have been a part of this narrative. They'll have seen that online, this is what people think. They're going to go into the villa with that kind of attitude. And that's when you started to see today's control freak. And it was a massive sea change. Up until season 5 or 6, you saw the boys generally having the run of the villa and the time of their life, bar the odd kind of strong female character. But around season 5 or 6, it's when you saw this person, and this is the bad bitch control freak. This isn't to single women out. There's certainly lots of bad male behaviour, and we'll cover that in another video, particularly when it comes to control. There's been some pretty awful boy behaviour when it comes to control. We'll definitely cover that. But sadly, the most prominent control freak that I see in Love Island is the bad bitch, and they're pretty awful to watch. You can spot a bad bitch quite easily. They follow the same control pattern that I've described multiple times. Demand, disproportionate benefit, and escalation. And the characteristics go something like this. They don't take any shit. Remember that guy? He keeps coming around again and again, the don't take any shit guy. Well, bad bitches don't take any shit. It's their absolute priority. From the moment they step in the villa, all the way through their stay, that's their focus. And they're looking out for shit they aren't going to take like a meerkat all of the time. When they first meet the other islanders, one of the first things out of their mouth is, I'm a bad bitch and I don't take any shit. And they monitor everybody for their reaction. They're also very clear about what girls they don't like. There's a real kind of mean girl characteristic to the bad bitch. They'll make it very clear to the girl who doesn't seem to invest in girl code that she's not part of the bad bitch crew. Meanwhile, some of the other girls will look up to the bad bitch and they'll kind of surround her, and you'll get this little clique quite quickly. The other thing is men are trash. Men are to be fought with and confronted at all times. And again, I think this comes from the online thing where they've seen the boys' behaviour for the first few seasons and they're sick of it. And these are the girls that are going to tell them. There's going to be a bit of a reckoning for the boys now, and it's going to be this girl's job to do it. So they will confront and attack boys at any opportunity. I've seen one girl in there who made a point of getting hold of a boy and sitting him down who she'd never had any kind of interaction with, just to tell him that she didn't like him. And she was drawing a line in the sand with their relationship. And this boy was baffled. But she was sitting him down and telling him, I don't like you and this is why. It was just really important to her that she made him know that she was in charge. The guy just kind of shrugged his shoulders. It doesn't matter whether the guy's logical and calm. The bad bitch will always escalate. They will go on full attack. These girls bring the whole villa to a standstill while they will scream across the villa abuse at people, really vile abuse at people. calling them names and belittling them, and they'll enjoy the attention that brings because it adds to their reputation. They're not ashamed of it at all. For them, that's their job, being a bad bitch. When it comes to the girls that they don't like, incidentally, every now and again those girls will be allowed inside the glass hula hoop, but it comes at a price. If a girl is falling out with another boy, the bad bitch will insert herself because now it's time to attack a boy. That's an opportunity. So she will temporarily protect the girl. But the price is that you're now inside the glass hula hoop and you've got to stick to the rules that the bad bitch says you have to stick to. And she's going to be watching you for betrayal. And if at any point you decide that you've got your own mind, the bad bitch will attack. Being a bad bitch's partner is a full-time job. These girls are queens. These girls are the prize. They're number one. And they're constantly watching their partner for betrayal. It's a bit like the glass hula hoop thing. She's let you inside the glass hula hoop and she's watching for you trying to escape. So she will monitor her partner stronger than anybody else. And any kind of thing that they perceive to be a betrayal will be attacked. And they will attack. They'll properly, verbally strip these guys off and they'll just reduce them to jelly. And then it's the guy's job to try and beg for forgiveness. The last thing, the way to spot a bad bitch is they're always a victim. If they're ever pushed into a corner where they can't argue their way out and somebody won't back down, it's being done to them. They haven't done anything wrong. And when it comes to how they've behaved, it's only because you've done that or something else has happened to me and that's why I'm this way. I've had a bad past. Now, I agree to some degree that if you look back in these girls' past, you're going to come up against an event that's made them behave that way. I'm sure of it. But it's typical control freak behaviour. They're taking no personal responsibility. They're saying, this thing has happened to me, and that gives me permission to act this way. And everybody else has got to pay for my pain. I heard about an interview recently with probably the worst bad bitch that's ever been in there. There might be one that comes pretty close, but this one was horrendous. This person's behaviour was absolutely vile. If it was a boy that had behaved this way, I think they would have been evicted from the villa that night, the first night they started. But this girl was allowed to go on for weeks and weeks, just being an absolute tyrant to everybody. She would abuse and belittle and swear and scream at anybody who didn't agree with her, particularly boys. Vile individual, at least on the surface. And I heard about this interview she was giving where she was acknowledging her bad behaviour in the villa. But it got to the point about why she was behaving that way. And her answer was, I couldn't understand why somebody just couldn't see my vulnerability and that I was doing this because I was hurt. Again, no personal responsibility there. You're acknowledging that you've been hurt, you're acknowledging that there's been a bit of event, and you're expecting everybody to see past this vile persona that you're projecting everybody. You're expecting them to see past that and look for some softness. Well, nobody's going to be able to do that because you're just being a dick. And trust me, this is how I used to behave years ago as well. I used to attack everybody. And then if I was cornered, I used to kind of go, well, why can't some people see that I'm doing this for a reason? I've been hurt. Something's happened to me. Taking no personal responsibility, and her response tells me that she still isn't. Even though she's acknowledging her behaviour was bad, she's still not taking personal responsibility for it. So that's where I think the bad bitch came from. I think it was kind of mid-run. The narrative on social media was saying to girls, we're not going to take this anymore. The guys in there are behaving really badly, and this is how we should be behaving in response. And then midway through, the bad bitches come in and they decide there's going to be some comeuppance for boys. And I think it's got a bit out of hand. Some of the more recent bad bitches have found this out to their cost because now, and I don't condone this, online they're now being attacked by people for their behaviour and it's ruining their lives just as much as well. The bad bitch thing has got to stop. These girls need to realise that it's not everybody else's job to manage their reaction to whatever's happened to them. And I think some of them could do with a little bit of help. Hopefully, if you're the kind of girl that acts like that and you're watching this, you might take that on board. It's not other people's jobs to manage your behaviour and what's happened to you. As I say, it isn't just the girls. I'm not singling the girls out here at all. I will do another episode on the boys' behaviour, and that's much more predictable. We're talking about coercion and jealousy there, and I'll give you a couple of individuals, and we'll talk about those in another episode. Anyway, in the meantime, there's the usual stuff down here. Hit me up there if you want some advice, if you want to share your story with others. Quite happy to do that, or I'm quite happy to just have private conversations with you and give you some advice about controlling behaviour. There's also still, am I the control freak? If you're concerned about whether or not you're being controlling, because as I've said many times before, it's not always obvious who's being controlling in a relationship. It's quite easy to get confused, and you can hit me up here for all of that kind of thing. In the meantime, I'll leave you with the usual. Control the freak, not the people. I'll see you next time. Behave.